Welcome to this episode of YouTube, where we are 12 days and counting to the 2016 pup introduction into the exhibit pack. And the pups are doing well. We have some weights on Axel here, lounging by the pond. They are 85 days old today, and Axel is 27.5 pounds. And Grayson is a little bit behind at 25.8 pounds. We want them to be 30 pounds at the time of the introduction, and so we've got probably a good opportunity to gain that weight, and that's just our preference as far as what we feel physical stature to be able to deal with the adult wolves. Plus, they're likely going to run around and lose some weight in the first couple of days of the introduction. We will continue to feed them 3 times a day while they're in the pack, and that's the rotation that we have on right now. So basically what we are doing to prepare for this pup introduction is to give them obviously more outside time. They've been essentially outside since July 5th in the pack holding area all night long, regardless of bugs, thunderstorms. We did have a pretty significant windstorm that came through, and we give them the choice. That's the nice thing about the Wolf Care Center design, is we give them the choice to come and go, and they did maintain themselves within the Wolf Care Center during some of the worst of the storms, and some of that we do block off because of lightning, and that's one thing that we can't really control, is all the chain link fence and lightning risk that we have. So sometimes we make the choice for them that they have to stay within the confines of the vestibule under the roof line, but they're still outside, they're still dealing with external temperatures, still dealing with bugs, still dealing with the fact that they have access all night long to the exhibit pack. That's important for us to make sure that this bond exists with the exhibit pack prior to the introduction. So telling the pups apart is a little bit challenging, but we are seeing some physical differences. And one of the things that we see is the precaudal tail gland, which is the black gland at the base of the tail. For Grayson, it's more of a black spot. For Axel, it's kind of a long, looks like kind of like a lightning bolt. So at this point, Grayson is now facing us. You'll see that black spot there. Axel, again, have the longer precaudal mark on his tail. We also see Axel developing a little bit differently. He's got a much narrower face, and so he seems to be also putting on guard hairs, showing a little bit more look of a juvenile, whereas Grayson seems a little bit stunted and is showing a little bit more of that pup-like look to him. So again, the pound difference is almost 2 pounds difference, and so that could just be a growth issue, and certainly not something that we're concerned about, although the big priority right now is maximize food resources, and that's really what we're doing. We're minimizing change at this point. We feel like we've met our obligation in socialization, so we're minimizing change and transition and maximizing food resources, and that's one of the things that we want to make sure that in the next 12 days that the food priority here is whatever the pups want. And at this point, they seem to prefer bison, but they also like chewing on chicken legs. We want to get enough liver into them so that we have a good vitamin D load on the pups. They have free access to kibble, which is pup kibble, that gives them obviously nutrients and things to chew on while they're teething and things, but pretty much anything they want, they get. And that includes deer legs, it includes, like I said, ground beef, bison, liver, chicken. They have a wide variety of options available to them. So as we said, we're feeding 3 times a day. We are feeding at usually between 5 and 6 in the morning when they get up. And during the day, actually, we're feeding during their pup program. So if they are awake for a pup program, they get offered a chicken leg or they get offered liver. Sometimes as a distraction, because the crowds have been fairly large, a beaver tail that kind of keeps them distracted. That has very little nutritional benefit for them, but certainly it's something that they enjoy. Or a frozen deer leg if it's real hot that they can chew on throughout the programs. So we looked at Shadow Malik's weights, and they are a little bit behind Shadow Malik's weights. So again, Grayson and Axel are 85 days old and roughly about 26 to 28 pounds. Shadow Malik in that 82 days of age were already about 28 to 29 pounds. So we know we're a little bit behind. But weight gains have been averaging anywhere from 3/10 of a pound to a half a pound. As a matter of fact, Grayson actually gained a pound yesterday. But this is a photo of Shadow Malik on July 14th, 2000. And Axel and Grayson are kind of along the same body frame, and certainly holding their own. The other thing we've been dealing with lately is a little bit of a tooth issue with Grayson, and we reminded ourselves that we had a tooth issue with Grizzer, where his milk tooth, his canine milk tooth, still remained in place even with his adult canine. So we do have some experience with pups and pup issues. The other thing that we have experience with was Aiden and kind of weepy eyes, which is what we've been experiencing with Grayson as well. So as I said, we have a lot of experience doing pup introductions. We know that we're not out of the woods yet as far as pup issues, and this is a image of Malik in August 2nd, 2000, where he'd eaten a rock and he had some difficulty in passing the rock and actually got quite sick and needed some subcutaneous fluid. So we know that you're never quite there as far as pup vulnerability, but these guys are doing quite well from the standpoint of interacting with the staff, interacting with visitors, putting up with the noise and life on an exhibit, and especially thunderstorms. We've had lots of those. But greeting the exhibit pack is something that we are seeing on a regular basis, and that's the benefit of them being out overnight in the pack holding area. Denali comes up and whines, and it's Axel who actually is at the fence there, and then Luna comes up and kind of does a block. Grayson's hanging back a little bit more, and that's the nature of the individual personalities of the pups. Certainly Axel's much more confident, has no problem being up there next to Luna. Even when Luna gets a little bit excited and does a fence bite, Axel just takes it in stride. Grayson is a little bit more timid about that, and so we're working with that as a wolf care. As a wolf curator, I'm going in with Luna and I'm blocking her from the pups when she gets so excited. I'm trying to calm her down, and that's one of my jobs in wolf care, is to keep the energy levels calm so that the pups feel secure and safe. And that's a lot of, like I said, a lot of the work that we do. Now, Luna's not the first wolf that we've seen with a little bit of dominant tendencies. And keep in mind, we've been doing pup introductions since the year 2000. This is Shadow Malik has pups. And as a matter of fact, if you caught that first clip, it was Shadow who did some fence biting towards the Lucas and Lakota there. So that can happen. And so we do watch these fence line works, and we, like I said, we've had some experience. This is the 2004 litter, and I'll let you listen to the howl there. That is Nisa, Maya, and Grizzer interacting. And then Shadow and Malik also met Aiden and Denali, and this is Aiden going into a subordinate posture and greeting. So we've had a lot of experience with introducing pups to non-related adults, and but it doesn't mean that we take it for granted. We certainly know that there can be issues, but we have a lot of protocol in place. We have a lot of team members that are involved. This is Shadow Malik's first day in with the exhibit pack. That's co-founder Nancy Gibson and Dave Meach, and myself and our vet, Dr. Chip Hansen, all who are part of the Wolf Care program today. So 16 years later, we've gone through this process. We've learned from the process. We know our facility has improved throughout this process, and just having some opportunities to have what we call the pack holding area where the pups can meet the adults first. That's going to be real important. And this is Shadow and Malik meeting the 2004 litter of Grizzer, Nisa, and Maya. And this is where we brought the pups in to the pack holding area, and they spent a lot of time there. They got very comfortable. And then when the introduction occurred, we brought Shadow and Malik in. And you can see there are hard muzzle bites, and those hard muzzle bites will continue as those adult wolves try to show them their kind of position, and also try to show them a little bit of manners. Now, one of the reasons why we use Tina the dog is Tina's already taught them a little bit about this. Tina will snap or even bark at them and encourage them to roll over. So Tina's going to help a lot on this introduction when it comes to pups meeting adult wolves. And here's Maya, who's doing exactly what Shadow asked. When I approach you, I want you to drop to the ground and submit. And you'll notice that the grooming behavior continues if pups submit versus that kind of obnoxious jumping, climbing behavior gets a little bit more of a hard muzzle bite and a little bit more disciplinary. So we have done this, like I said, Shadow did it twice with the 2004 litter, and here he is with the 2008 litter. What was interesting about Shadow, the second time around, he actually regurgitated for Aiden and Denali, and there's several shots here of them regurgitating. So Shadow, he got better the second time around as far as his tolerance. He still showed discipline, but it was an inhibited muzzle bite, and certainly the pups understood it, and the pups did what they needed to do, which was be submissive. And so we will do the same thing, and this is a clip of Aiden meeting Luna and Bolts. Now notice Luna and Bolts are quite a bit bigger than Axel and Grayson because they were born in March. And so we did the introduction on July 30th. Essentially, the pups were much older, much bigger in body size. Axel and Grayson are much younger when they're going to meet the pack. And that's actually an advantage for them. The younger they are, the more they're perceived as pups. The older they are, the more they may be perceived as a little bit of competitor or a little bit of a threat. Now, Aiden, when he first met, because Bolts was so eager to interact, Luna didn't really seem to have much concern for Aiden at all. And so we know that Aiden's been through this before. We've watched him interact, and we know from working with Shadow and Malik that Shadow as well, the second time around, was more tolerant. And I think we're going to see that with Aiden. Now Luna, it's going to be her first time meeting young pups, so we're going to definitely want to watch that. So we are planning the introduction right now. We're kind of getting an idea of who's staffing it, meaning which individual wolf care staff will be in with Aiden and Luna, which ones have a better relationship with Aiden and Luna, which ones are going to likely be able to block and be able to have an influence in calming behavior, who are the pups going to look to as far as that comfort level. And then Bolts and Denali still have to meet the pups, and so we're going to see Bolts and Denali being brought in, similar to what this clip is right here, where Aiden meets the pups first, Luna and Bolts first, and then Denali's sitting and holding, waiting to meet the pups. That's likely how we're going to proceed as well, where the dominant pair, Aiden and Luna, meet the pups first, and then Denali and Bolts will come in after we feel that there's a good relationship. And you can actually see that now. In this case, Bolts just stops, and instead of jumping all over Aiden, he just kind of greets him and stands next to him, and Aiden's much more relaxed. Although Aiden's tail is still fairly low, it's wagging, and certainly that's a social greeting. And so here Bolts is a little more respectful of Aiden, kind of comes up and interacts, and doesn't jump all over him. And that excitement wears off fairly quickly. So again, I have to be aware that anything can happen, and we're not saying just because we have experience with previous introductions that we are in the clear. This is our job to be able to read behaviors. That's why ethograms are so important to us and to the wolf care staff, to the behavioral team, and to be able to watch the ear postures, the tail postures. Now when Denali comes out, this is classic Denali. He's not into dominating, he's into tail wagging, he's into social greetings. I suspect that both Bolts and Denali are going to have this response when interacting with the pups. What I have to watch, though, is how Aiden is going to, if Aiden's going to redirect or Luna's going to redirect and get in the middle of pups and the other adult wolves. So one thing is the wolf care staff stay in the pen pretty much for the first at least 24 hours, if not 48 hours, are in the enclosure or near the enclosure to be able to address issues and be able to manage those issues as they arise. And so that's a very important part of our job in wolf care. So one of the best parts of the introduction is having the first carcass feeding that's done, usually the first week after the pups are in. And this is footage from the year 2000 when Shadow Malik joined the pack, and this is Lucas, the dominant pack leader, the male pack leader, who is watching the pups. And typically the pups have the right to feed and have the right to guard food, and don't have a lot of competition from the adults. Now in this case, Lucas is trying to get in and grab a little bit, but he's very respectful, and Shadow is doing a lot of blocking behavior. Certainly that is the tendency of the pack dynamics, is that the pups get to feed first, the pups get to control things, and that changes after they reach about 6 or 8 months of age and they start to find themselves at the bottom of the rank order. But when they're young like this, they are typically viewed as the future of the pack, or at least that's our interpretation of it, and that right transforms itself into having a good feeding opportunity. And so, like I say, with Lucas, it's just becoming a little bit more social, doing a 4-leg stab, kind of encouraging the pups to socially interact with play bows, and then he actually goes over and blocks Lakota from coming near the pups. Now in 2008, when Aiden and Denali joined the pack, we had a female who was a little bit food possessive, and that was Maya. And so Maya, even here, shows that submissive posture, rolling over for the pups, doing a submissive jab, and letting Aiden climb all over her, yet having a little bit of competition with the carcass, but certainly not by any means dominating the carcass, and certainly being in a very social behavior, especially with Aiden. It seems like Aiden was the one that was much more social with the adult wolves versus Denali being a little bit more standoffish, a little bit more confident, Aiden being a little bit more timid. That does seem like the pattern that we're probably seeing right now, and it will be interesting to see if that transforms itself within the pack structure as they get older, if Axel will still remain a little bit more confident and a little bit more independent, and Grayson being a little bit more timid, and that timid behavior meaning that he's going to be interacting a little bit more socially with the adult wolves. And that's what we saw with Aiden versus Denali in 2008. If you are interested in learning more about the introduction, we do have a webinar on July 28th, Thursday night at 6 o'clock Central, where we'll be talking about the plan and actually kind of doing a dry run and not doing the introduction, but to move Luna and Aiden into the pack holding area, see how they interact or see how they act with each other in such small quarters. And then after we move Aiden and Luna out, we will then move the pups in and see what they think about having the sense of the adult wolves in the pack holding area. We continue to have webinars as the winter progresses and be able to watch those pups in their first feeding, their first fall, their 6 months of age, and how the winter looks as a member of the exhibit pack. So that's it for this week, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.